here's this problem, use this product that I've developed to solve it. But I learned a lot about the marketing side of cybersecurity as well. So, you know, every event you go to, you'll find different nuggets of knowledge in there that will help. And because I was going on my company's dime, you know, I didn't care. But you know, and this was the competition that I went to, the Cyber Diplo Hack. It was like one of the first competitions of its kind in DC, and you know, it was such a fun experience for me. It was my first competition I had ever done. And if you're in school right now and you have like a cyber competition team that would do like capture the flags or anything like that, you know, I highly recommend you do them just to gain the knowledge of how to do them and how it works, if like hacking is what you want to do, or if there's some other like, or you can even like start a club for things like that if your school doesn't have one. I definitely recommend you do that. This was when I got my degree in the mail. That was probably one of the proudest moments of my life because I actually did it. I started something, I finished it, I made it. It was entirely worth it. This was my first certification. I wanted to get my Certified Ethical Hacker certification because I had done a lot of research on, because I originally wanted to be a hacker. And so I did a lot of research on what I would need to do to get to that point. And in all my research, the CEH came up a number of times, so I wanted to take it. And my ethical hacking class at UMUC was a prep course for that certification. So I felt I was ideally placed to take that test and pass it. I had to take it twice. So I took the test in, I think it was April of last year, and I came about 3% short of passing. You need a 70% to pass. I got a 67. And that was one of the lowest points of my life, I think, because I had gambled a lot on this one certification, on this putting me on the map to getting me what I wanted out of my career. Because, you know, I'm fresh out of college, I have debt, I'm not making any money because I'm at a unpaid internship. And, you know, it was really bad. I was very depressed after that. You know, there's a lot of low points that you will find on your journey. And, you know, not everything is going to go smoothly for you, and that's a reality you kind of have to face. And it's something that this is a Facebook post that I made June 21st of last year, as Facebook was so nice to remind me of the other day. And so I wanted to share this with you because I had been so frustrated because in my specific situation, I was living at home with my parents who were getting ready to sell the house and move to Florida. And if I didn't find my own place, then I would have to go with them. And I really didn't want to move to Florida. They're moving to the kind of middle of nowhere where my opportunities for finding a job in the field that I wanted would have been much less than it is here in DC. You know, my bank account was shrinking every month because I still had bills to pay, and all I was going off of was like what I had earned over my career as my minimum wage job. This was a week before I was taking my CEH for the second time, and I was super nervous about it. And, you know, as confident as I am the majority of the time, and as overblown as my ego is at times, this was still, I was doubting myself for the first time in a really long time. And I felt like I had no options. I felt very lost. But what I want to tell you, what I want you to learn from that is that despite any failures you might have along the way, just keep going at it, keep plugging away at it, figure out what it is you need to do. When I failed my first CEH, I picked up my books again. I studied again for about 2 months before I took it again and passed with a much better score than I had the first time. And I felt great. It felt really good because I had considered not taking it that second time because I had already sunk $400 into the voucher for the first one, and the second one was another $350. But then I was like, I already spent $400 to take the test the first time, and if I don't have it, then I just wasted $400. So I really felt like I had to finish it just for my own peace of mind. And I think a lot of people feel that way, and from people I've talked to in past presentations, they feel very similarly in that they they don't know what they're doing, or they take a test and they fail and they don't know if they should keep going. But I'm here to tell you, definitely keep at it. If you need to, take a step back and kind of see where you're at and reevaluate things. Always have plans, but reevaluate your plans. So when I first started this whole journey in November of 2014, I mapped out where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do. I had it all written down in a nice little chart. And your plans will change. Things will happen and you will have to be flexible about it and adjust your plans as necessary. What I'm doing now is I'm not involved in hacking any longer. I'm a malware analyst with a company called the Media Trust. And what they do is they do ad and website governance and digital threat intelligence. And that's what my marketing people tell me to say. I don't know what any of that mostly means. I just deal with the malware. But I find now, so I've been there for about, I got hired September of last year. And that was another proud moment for me when I got hired at my first big boy job, is what I call it, and because it was my first real office job. And that was after I had gotten my CEH. I had been job hunting for a long time. I was on Monster, I was on Indeed, I was on every job site you can imagine, and for months at a time I had no hits. There is one important lesson I want to mention, is that I learned hesitation can definitely cost you a good job opportunity. So my first real big job lead was for a SOC analyst position out in Vegas. And at the time, I was really nervous about that because I had never moved away from DC, and I haven't spent a whole lot of time outside of DC, because DC is where I feel at home. It's the place I know. And moving across the country where I know no one was a little daunting to me. And I made the mistake of mentioning that to the recruiter. I was like, hey, I need the weekend to kind of talk it over with my family and see what I need to do if I really want to do this. And I'm about 85% sure that's why I didn't get that job. It's because I mentioned the hesitation and I wasn't as eager as I should have been. And that was one time when I didn't take that opportunity, and I feel like it cost me. So I didn't recognize what a good opportunity that would have been for me. And if I had gotten that job, I would be in Vegas right now in the summer heat and probably gambling. So I wouldn't. No, I like to gamble. But ultimately, it helped teach me what not to do. And so I definitely wanted to mention that tonight, because it was one of the only times I've hesitated in my life, and it didn't end up well for me. But anyways, onto my current job. That one, I got lucky and it fell into my lap. Someone contacted me on Monster.com, a recruiter, and said, hey, I have this malware analyst position. And at that point, I had learned my lesson about hesitation, and I knew malware analysis was something that had been on my radar. I had never gone into too in-depth in it, but I knew it sounded interesting. So, because who wouldn't want to create their own malware and have fun with that, right? But I met with the guy, my current boss, and I liked what I heard, and so I took the job, and it's been the best decision I've ever made in my life, and I'm so happy that I am at the point where I am at now. And it's important that you take some time to enjoy your victories as well. You don't always have to be on the daily grind every day, all day, every day. Take some time for yourself. And even after I got the job, I didn't want to get complacent and comfortable, because in this industry, if you get comfortable, you tend to get left behind because it evolves so quickly. New technologies emerge, new strategies happen. You hear about things in the news all the time, and I've continued to learn. And even less than a year after being at this job, the fiscal year just ended for us, and I'm really pushing for my CEO to start paying for certifications for us. And I think I'm gaining some headway, so I might be getting some free certifications in the near future. And you really gotta keep pushing for your goals, whatever they may be. And I really, it will definitely benefit you. So some of the questions I always get when I do these presentations, a couple of them are right here. Where do I start? A lot of people, it's such a big field, a lot of people don't know where to start. And what worked for me may not necessarily work for you, but I feel like you have to start by identifying what it is you want to do in this field. Whether it's hacking, whether it's malware analysis, whether it's information assurance, policy, anything like that. Figure out what it is you want to do, or even have a slight interest in, and do some research on it. Take a few courses on it, see if you like it. Do some extracurricular activities on your own, and just play around with it. And once you figure out what it is you want to do, then you can start doing more research into how to make that a reality. Should I get XYZ certification? That's probably one of the most frequent questions I get. And so if you're fresh out of college and have no credibility whatsoever, and if you have the opportunity to get a certification, go ahead and get it. It will not hurt you in the slightest, and it will add that edge of credibility to your resume because it looks good. And a lot of places love the CompTIA, those basic ones like A+, Security Plus, Network Plus, things like CEH. So I have a CEH. I don't use it at my job at all. I got it purely to get my foot in the door. And I feel like the $750 I spent on it was well worth it at this point. Looking back, at the time I wouldn't have said that, but now in hindsight, it was a really good way for me to jumpstart my career. So getting that certification definitely helped. And if you are, even curious about getting a certification, I say go for it. If you can afford it and it's something you want, definitely. Once you're already established in a job, if your employer will pay for certifications, yeah, get them. I love free stuff. And if they're going to pay, I personally will not ever go to graduate school if I have to pay for it. But if I find a job where they will pay for me to go to get my master's degree, I'm all for it. But, and then what's my opinion on, insert subject here. So cybersecurity is such a broad term, and there are many aspects of it that are confusing to a lot of people, and they don't know if that's something that will benefit them in the long run. Like I had someone tell me they wanted to do geospatial intelligence, and I have no idea what that is, but it sounded cool as hell. So I did some research on it, and it's pretty cool. So if there's even if it's a niche subject in cybersecurity that you want to do, if you're passionate about it, I say keep pulling on that thread and see where it goes, because as niche as malware analysis is, I'm finding it's some of the coolest stuff I've ever seen. The things I've learned at my job in terms of, so I had never really gotten into JavaScript before this job, but now it's all I deal with, because that's all malware on the internet is JavaScript. And I'm starting to learn a lot more about that, and it's really cool. Just seeing how people slip, pop under code in there and different attack vectors. For me, that's some of the coolest stuff that I've learned, and just how attackers attack different websites and how that all works under the hood. And that's really something that I've enjoyed at my job. So if you have something you're passionate about, definitely go for it. And if anyone, that's pretty much all I have for my presentation right now. If anyone has any questions, there's plenty of time left for me to answer any questions you might have. No? Okay, that makes my job very easy.
All right, let's give it up for Brandon. All right, so we got about 15 more minutes until the food comes. So I guess that gives me some time to kind of go over my story and how I got here. So I joined the military after high school. During my military experience, my list of jobs to start off with was over 1,000 that they promised. Then they realized that I was colorblind, and then my list of jobs ended up being 2 options. And those options were laundry and bath specialist or radio operator maintainer. And I was like, you don't have to tell me what a laundry and bath specialist does. I don't want to do that. So I became a commo guy. My first duty station, we never used radios. Windows 95 came out instead. So the commo shop essentially turned into a help desk. I was in Korea at the time, and I loved it. I would walk around with my stack of disks and fix everything that I could. While I was in Korea, when I first started, my mentor there, Ms. Kim, Korean lady, whenever we would have a problem, I would follow her out. One day she said, I'm not going out anymore. You go by yourself. If you can't fix it, call me. and I totally refused to ever call her. I was like, I got my disks, all I gotta do is just reinstall Windows, give them my IP address, and some email, and we're done. Moving forward, I ended up coming to the Washington, D.C. I got out, became a reservist, and in my first station as a reservist, that's where I met our next speaker, Gail. I ended up getting deployed. I never thought that would happen as a reservist. Apparently, I didn't read the memo about being a reservist. So during my first reserve duty station, because I was commo, they gave me an Intel analyst job. So I went from doing just regular IT computer jobs to actually tracking APTs. And I had no idea what an APT was at the time, but I learned how to do it.
What is an APT, Ty?
APTs are advanced persistent threats. If you're doing network intrusions, I don't want to say any country names, but they're just attacker, hacker groups that are malicious in nature that primarily attack government networks. So it was always my mentality that your job is to be good at your job. So I did everything I can to learn what I needed to do to be good at this job. And I was so focused that I loved it. I ended up being the nerdy guy at work everywhere I went. So I got accustomed to being that guy. After the first duty station, after that, we get deployed, we come back to the area, got offered the same position in the military, but not as a reservist, but on active duty. So I did that for another 2 more years as an extension to my deployment. So by this time, I've actually done more active duty time as a reservist than in my first 4 years of actually being on active duty. So with that, of course, in the military, your job can change any day, any moment. So I've done things from network intrusion analysis to help desk work to trend analysis, where we're just tracking numbers for every type of incident, packet, port, every week for every organization under DoD. 2.5 years of that. I got out, became a contractor. And if you guys know about the contract life, you're still in a skiff, no sunlight half the time, walking around with badges. Sometimes you have to badge in 3 times just to get to your office. So once that was over, of course, during this time, I'm studying for certifications. Some of them I did well, I guess. I'll admit that I failed my CISP twice. Then I just gave up on it. I said, maybe one day. But for certifications, Security Plus, CEH, and I'm currently about to take my OSCP. So I feel like I've been in the OSCP labs for over 1.5 years now. And if you guys have any experience with that or been in those labs, then you know what it's like. If you don't know what it's like, I challenge everyone to give it a shot. So where are we? First civilian job, I'm at a company called Salient, working at JTF-GNO, which is now US Cybercom. So now as a contractor, I'm doing the same exact job that I did in the military. Luckily for me, the community was small, so my very first interview was just us having lunch, right? Luckily, the guy that interviewed me happened to be one of the nerdy guys that was in the office that I just happened to be nice to at the time. I didn't know that he was gonna interview me. I didn't know that he wasn't gonna interview me, so I came prepared. I studied and everything, and I was actually mad that I didn't have to interview. So moving forward, another contracting job, doing work on IPv6 firewalls. I had no idea what IPv6 was, but I was ready for the challenge. So learn IPv6. And if anyone knows me, you know that I fell in love with IPv6 too. After seeing its capabilities and what it can do, I just felt like I had to tell the whole world. So essentially,
And you do.
I felt like I told the whole world for 2.5 years, and no one listened to me. So I gave up on that. With that being said, at JTFGNO, we would always complain about dumb users, clicking on this, clicking on that. So I had this bright idea to start a meetup group to actually educate the user. And I felt like if we did that, then hopefully that will trickle up and make all of our jobs a lot easier. So that was 4 years ago. Started this meetup group, took me 9 months to have 100 people in the group, and now we get, what, 150 people a month? Yeah, and we get to fill the room, we get to do a lot of networking, and that led me to start my own company. I started that 3 years ago. In the meetup group has actually allowed me to kind of do some networking, have some flexibility, odd jobs here and there, and it actually is one of the things that kept me going. So I know in Brandon's presentation, he mentioned having ups and downs and the things that you have to push through. So you're definitely gonna have a lot of up and downs. And there was a period in my life where it was just really, really bad for about 6 months. And one of the things that kept me going was the meetup group. So it gave me something to look forward to, something to plan for, even if at the time it was just once a month. So for about 6 months, no one knew that I was essentially homeless, jobless, or anything. But like I said, you push through all that, keep it going. And we're here today, like room full of people, logos, like all the good stuff. And that's essentially my story in a nutshell. I know there's more, but I don't wanna bore anyone. So I will give an extra, so we're gonna have an extra, Sarah?
I actually have a question,
Yeah, question.
for both you and Brandon,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of the learning curve, which seems like a common theme
Mhm.
in both your stories. Because the issue sometimes can be that, you know, I thought I was gonna be a hacker, but I got an opportunity as a malware analyst.
Okay.
How do you like gain the confidence? And I don't know if maybe both of you can talk about how do you jump into something, a new area, feeling, well, you know what, I can't entertain this without being hesitant.
Yeah, so for me, like I said, malware analysis had always been on my radar. I just from my basic understanding of it, of what it entailed, interested me. I picked up a book on it and learned as much as I could about it, and that's when I knew that, you know, I knew I wanted to do it further down in my career, but I had the opportunity to move that timeline ahead. So that's why I shifted from hacking and to malware analysis, knowing full well what I would have to do. And the job that I got was for an entry-level person, so I knew I would have a lot of room to grow. And for anyone looking for like that entry-level position, I highly recommend analyst positions, because generally they require a lot of on-the-job training, and it's just looking at data feeds and interpreting it. And I feel like that's absolutely the best way to learn a new subject, is to just look at all the data, figure out what that means, and then from there you can learn. And just for me in general, confidence has never been something that I struggled with. So for me, I knew right away when I saw that, I was like, hey, I wanted to do this in like 5 years from now, but I can do it now. So it was really a no-brainer for me.
I can tell you some of the things that helped for me. What I would do is I would find folks that are really, really good in my career field, and I would stalk the hell out of them like a crazy person. And I would do research on everything they've ever done, everything they're doing, and everything they plan to do. And there's educational outlets out there like YouTube, the websites that they own, sites that they may blog on, and also on Twitter. So I would follow those folks like a madman. If they were going to conferences, I was going to conferences. If they were reading up on something or commenting on something, then I would be right there. I would feel the same way they did. I would have like the same opinion on things most of the time. But in addition to that, you also have to put in the time to make yourself better. There's a lot of things that you have to give up, like TV and the latest Sons of Anarchy episode. Don't give up the Game of Thrones, because that's important. But everything else, it's going to be late nights. It's going to be early mornings. As a matter of fact, I get most of my work done before 9 a.m. Right? It's a really good time to get things done. And I mean, you can't really take any time off, right? I mean, there would be times, I mean, I don't want to say this, but there'll be times that I'm on the toilet, but I make sure I bring my phone with me because I can check the latest Twitter feeds or see what's trending, or just use that time to either listen to a podcast. There'll be times where I would actually enjoy rush hour traffic because I know that it would take 40 to 50 minutes, and that would give me time to listen to a 40 or 50-minute podcast. So that was one of my things, just try not to waste time. Because when you look back, you realize how much time you actually wasted in a day or in a week. So if you just do the quick math, 40-minute drive, going to work and coming back, that's 10 hours that you could educate yourself that you would be missing out on if you didn't.
Yeah, and I think for the most part, it's about priorities. I think it's just human nature that, the higher things are on your priority list, the more time you find for those priorities. And for me, for the past, like when I was in school for 1.5 years, I had given up basically having a social life. I stayed single. I didn't go out with my friends drinking because I couldn't afford to. But you best believe when I got that first paycheck, I was buying bottles. Oh yeah, absolutely. I got that first paycheck, I was like, drinks are on me tonight, guys. I'm so happy. And when you can do that for your friends, it feels really good, and it made that whole 1.5 years of not going out worth it for me. And to now be able to go out to like happy hours with my new coworkers and things like that and spend some money, it's a nice feeling. So as much as you have to give up in a certain amount of time, it definitely pays off in the end.
So you're saying the self-study research is what helped you guys like build your confidence when it came to going into your position?
Yeah,
Definitely.
I mean, you'll always have more confidence when you know more about a given subject than if you don't. So if you do your research and you know what it is you're getting into, like the more you know about what you're getting into, I feel like the more confident you will be going into it and not just going in blind and hoping for the best.
Any more questions? Anyone? Yeah.
So, we talked about, you talked about a couple of things. First of all, is networking to get to that position, and then also the fact that the position that you're currently in was more of, luck of the draw. You put in the application, someone called you, you got the offer, and, now you're here. Moving forward, with everything that you talked about, the networking, the people you talk to, where do you see yourself?
So for me, I definitely am continuing to network with people and get to know other people because I feel like, I want to prepare for the worst. So let's say I do something really stupid about my job and I have to leave. Then I want to make sure that I have options and people to reach out to if I do need another job. Right now, I feel like I'm just beginning to, I've been settled in for a number of months now at my job, and now I'm pushing for more certifications for us because I want us to have a bit more credibility on our team and for our company as a whole. So, and it's the beginning of the fiscal year, and apparently it's the best time to ask for money. So that's what I'm really pushing for at my company right now. And whenever my boss asks, like, hey, does someone want to go to this conference? I'm the first person to say, yes, send me, because I want to gain as much knowledge as possible. And I continue to show initiative at my job, answering every client's emails as much as I can, and just keeping on learning. I've bought several books on malware analysis to better understand my own job. And I'm really excited going forward of getting a certain certification, because there's one I've had my eye on for a long time. It's the GIAC Reverse Engineering Malware certification, and only 2,500 people in the country have that certification. So if I were to get that, then I would be much more marketable for future jobs that I have, and I'd be able to command a much higher salary because I have that added credibility to my name. So I was aware of being complacent and comfortable in my own job, and I took steps to make sure that didn't happen. So I'm continuing to learn. And that's what you always want to do to stay ahead of the curve.
So you just reminded me of something that I failed to mention in my presentation. So my first job out of the military was a help desk supervisor position. I believe I was 22 years old, and the position was open at a law firm. I said, I'm never going to get this position, but I applied for it anyway. They called me in, come to find out, 5 out of the 6 people that interviewed me were former military. And they all asked me the same question, have you been a manager before? And in my mind, I was like, yeah, I've been in charge of every single private in my section. So confidently, I said, yes, I've been a manager for the last 3 or 4 years. And I ended up getting the job. So you can't let the titles of the positions kind of scare you, right? The engineering jobs, the engineering positions, even titles that have senior in it or manager in it, it may kind of throw you off because you may not have had that position before, but go for it, you know. You never know, you might actually be a great fit for that job. One of the things that I try to do in my career is try to identify what I absolutely love doing, right? And one of the things that I love doing is analyzing things, solving problems, and answering questions. So when I found out about being a pen tester about 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago, it actually lined up with everything that I absolutely love to do. So once I started the offensive side of IT, or focusing on what's called offensive security, I loved it, and I realized that I never wanted to do anything else but offensive security. So at the moment, I'm currently managing, or I'm with my company, have a team of folks that do offensive security, and it's having the company and doing this work is actually my dream job, right? Plus, I get to give back to everyone else, so I feel like I'm in a good position mentally and emotionally. So if you can figure out what you love, what you absolutely love to do, then do that, because your passion is going to come out of that, and everyone will be able to see it. Yes.
How do you know how much you're worth? Like when you're applying for jobs and stuff, they ask you what's your expectations. And I always been a little iffy about that. Like, how do you determine how much you're worth? You put too much, you're not in a position. You put too less, you get screwed.
All right. Funny you say that. So when I first got my very first contracting job, one of my soldiers was an E4 at the time, and this was 2009 or whatever. His first job out of the military was making $80,000 a year, and I believe he got a $5,000 to $10,000 bonus. So I kind of used that as my gauge, and I was like, if he's getting this, I know what I could get, right? But it was my first job, and it scared me because I didn't know what rate that I should put for myself. Even to this day, like I still get that, you know, that butterfly in your stomach when people ask, what's your rate? So that takes some time, that takes some confidence. You can actually go higher than what you may feel you are, and just kind of try it out. See what the average number is, ask around, because you never know. I can tell you that, remember when I mentioned that interview that I didn't have the first time? He put a number down, I looked at the number, and on the inside I was like, oh shit. Right? But on the outside, you know, I had to stay cool. I said, you know, let me go home, think about this, and talk it over, and I'll get back to you tomorrow. But I had already decided in my head that I was going to take the job. But that's actually a good question. That's tough. I'm sure everyone else in the room can attest that that's knowing your worth is really tough. And if you have folks that work for you, telling them what they're worth to you is even tougher.
Hey, Ty, also a good resource is Glassdoor.
Yeah. Glassdoor?
So for what I did for knowing my worth and getting my first salary, you know, I wasn't picky about my first salary being like my first big job. So the amount, my job kind of gave like a flat amount, like this is what we're gonna pay you, no matter what. So I kind of was like, I'm cool with that. But what really hit home for me was that after being at my job for a couple months, I got a LinkedIn message with a job posting for a senior malware analyst position, which I knew I wasn't qualified for. But when I saw the figure they were going for, it was like 200,000, and I was like, that's what I have to look forward to at the height of my career? I'm on the right path. So for me, if I was just starting out, so I didn't have a high figure in mind, but I knew kind of the rough area of what I was looking for based on job postings that I had seen and what they were offering. And so based on that research, I kind of knew what I could ask for. And I had a couple of other friends in the IT field who told me, you know, don't ask for more than this on your first job because you're not going to get it. So, and because a buddy of mine who does IT, he said, you're definitely not going to get any more than like 60K for your first job. And like with just a degree and like no certifications or like one certification. So it's really, so, and I felt like that was a good benchmark to kind of not go past.
Yeah. All right. So it looks. Any other questions? No. All right. So it looks like the food's here. That's going to give us some extra time to do some networking. And once again, I repeat, the views and opinions expressed by Brandon Chen.
My opinions are solid.
Is Brandon's and only Brandon's. All right. So what we'll do is we will break for about 15 to 20 minutes. We'll start up again at I don't know, 7:25, 7:30. Our guest speaker, Gail, is in the building right now. Tell you a little bit about Gail before the food comes. I met her at my first reserve unit in Massachusetts. And the first time I saw her, you know, she was this little thing, young, coming in, uniform, jacked up and everything. But you could tell that she was really smart. And, you know, she had a good head on her shoulders and she had everything already together. I think, I just got a house, bought a house at the time. And I was like, man, she's like 21, 20?
I bought my house before I got my bachelor's degree.
Yeah.
Because I figured instead of buying alcohol, I saved up all that money, and there was enough for that down deposit.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, and she's been doing great things ever since. So I found out that she was in the area, and I asked her to come down. I can't wait to hear the rest of her story and what she's been doing, you know, ever since. All right, so with that being said, let's break right now. The restrooms are upstairs. The food should be down here soon. Take this time to get to know one another, and I challenge you to meet someone new today. We'll start up again in about 20 minutes. All right, thanks.
I sent you an email with a PowerPoint. Are you going to hold up on there, or do I need to?